it's in the mutual interest of Donald Trump and Keir Starmer to mention Epstein and Mandelson as little as humanly possible, because, of course, the Epstein scandal touches both Mandelson and Trump, and it's been an interesting study in contrasting responses in that Peter Mandelson had to pay the price and was summarily fired for his associations with Epstein, whereas Trump has no intention of doing that, and there's almost zero pressure for him to do that, certainly from his own Republican side, although it is a scandal that continues to dog him.
David, let's start with you. Could you just give us a bit of a cutout and keep guide? Take us through the couple of days from Trump's arrival on Tuesday night.
Well, I think what will grab most of the attention is all the pomp and pageantry. Britain will put on a show for Donald Trump, not least because it knows he loves that sort of thing and will be seeking to impress him. There's talk of, royal carriages and, great parades and so on. And I think most importantly, the state dinner will be a grand affair. And if you're looking for a blueprint, look at Trump's first state visit during his first term as president. Away from that, I think what's most substantial, most important, of course, is the discussions that will take place between Trump and Keir Starmer around various issues, everything from online safety and the clash between British legislation and what internet companies want, and perhaps even more importantly, the current situation in Ukraine, where, of course, Starmer has been one of several European leaders really pushing Trump to continue to back Ukraine, especially in the wake of that meeting with Vladimir Putin in Alaska, where Trump seemed to be wobbling. And indeed, of course, right now, Putin only seems to be escalating that conflict, and Trump's particular brand of diplomacy does not seem to be working.
No, okay, interesting. Let's take a step back from that for a moment, Ambassador Philip. He will be packing his bags, Donald Trump, getting himself ready. What's on his mind right now? What is he looking to get out of this week in the UK?
Well, I think this state visit, as he acknowledges and we know, is a sort of unprecedented event to have a second visit for a U.S. president. Of course, he has had two separate terms, and of course there was a different monarch when he came to the UK in 2019, the late Queen Elizabeth II, and now he's coming at the invitation as the U.S. head of state, the invitation of your head of state, King Charles III. But this will be, as David said, full of pomp and circumstance, as I think only the Brits can do. Donald Trump loves that sort of thing. The more gilded, the better. The golden carriage, the carriage ride at Windsor, I think will be a highlight. I'm sure he's thinking about that as he packs his white tie and tails.
Okay. David, look, these questions about Peter Mandelson that the government are looking to move on from, they will no doubt rear their head, won't they? And especially, of course, in the context of Donald Trump having had an association with with Jeffrey Epstein himself. How do they rear their head? How do both of these men navigate that?
Well, I think it's in the mutual interest of Donald Trump and Keir Starmer to mention Epstein and Mandelson as little as humanly possible, because, of course, the Epstein scandal touches both Mandelson and Trump, and it's been an interesting study in contrasting responses in that Peter Mandelson had to pay the price and was summarily fired for his associations with Epstein, whereas Trump has no intention of doing that, and there's almost zero pressure for him to do that, certainly from his own Republican side, although it is a scandal that continues to dog him. And it's a curious one because Donald Trump tends to confront every scandal head on. He brazenly talks about it. For example, he's happy to say, I'm accepting a $400 million jet from Qatar to be Air Force One. This one seems different. He's actually behaving like a typical politician. He wants to bury it and not talk about it. So I think he's unlikely to face questions from Keir Starmer and vice versa. Where the interesting test will come is that we do know Trump loves these open-ended, freewheeling events with the press. And we saw that just recently with Keir Starmer in Scotland at Trump's golf course. That went on for more than an hour. Like so many other foreign leaders before him, Keir Starmer had to sit there while Trump pontificated on any number of subjects. Some of them are a little bizarre and esoteric. I think if and when that similar press availability happens, of course there'll be a barrage of questions from journalists about this, and you may see Keir Starmer especially shift uncomfortably in his seat when the issue of Mandelson and Epstein comes up. Trump, I'm sure, will attempt his usual bluster.
And Philip, as a diplomat, how do you see this awkward issue being navigated?
Well, I think if you go to the sort of 30,000-foot level, Daryl, you have to remember that we're coming up on about 9 months till we in the United States celebrate 250 years since we declared independence, since those 13 colonies declared independence from King Charles's predecessor, George III. And that is a bit of a backdrop, I think, for this trip. I'm sure you'll hear that mentioned at various points in the discussion. And I suspect there will be invitations, reciprocal invitations to the King, certainly to the Prince and Princess of Wales, to visit the United States next year in this important 250th anniversary year. So that's sort of the state-to-state thing. And I think some of these issues, like Epstein, as David said, President Trump may just blow right past them. He's already said that he thinks spending too much time focused on that issue, even as it engulfed Mandelson, and he's had to step down just days before the visit begins.
Okay, just on that then, Philip, as far as the royal family are concerned, this is a tense moment for them as well, possibly. Or it could be, right? I mean, let's just remember the context here. Donald Trump has spoken openly, unprecedented this in many ways, about taking, by economic force, Canada. That is a country which is a constitutional monarchy, for which the king is the head of state. How does he greet a man at his home who has talked, seriously or otherwise, about taking one of his countries by economic force?
Well, I think that was an awkward point, and that was something that had to be conveyed to the White House early on in those first weeks and months of the second Trump administration when he was speaking that way about Canada. I'm not sure many in the White House understood that King Charles is the king of Canada. I know that was conveyed to them, and you'll have noticed that some of that rhetoric toned down a little bit. I think the president wants to be extremely gracious and grateful with King Charles. He respects him highly. He talks frequently about how much he respected the late Queen. He thinks the royal family is great. He's very much in a sort of legacy and dynastic phase of his own life, and reflecting on himself, describing himself as a king in a way, appearing that way in various cartoons. So I think you'll find Trump is very grateful to the king for the invitation and for showing him this kind of respect. And then, of course, we'll have the sort of head of government side when President Trump meets with Prime Minister Starmer at Chequers, and they have, as David already mentioned, a whole agenda of things, including sort of fleshing out a little bit this US-UK trade deal, which still is a little weak on details.
Yeah, okay. Just briefly, David, I'm a little late on time here, a bit tight on time, but I just wanted to put this point to you because there's been some interesting changes, haven't there, regarding the sort of two administrations. David Lammy, who worked very hard to foster this sort of strong relationship with the Trump administration before becoming Foreign Secretary and then during his time as Foreign Secretary, has been replaced by Yvette Cooper late last week. The UK ambassador has now been removed as well from post. Something of a changing of the guard in terms of the UK's, those people who are sort of holding this relationship between the UK and the US. How is that affecting things, do you think, or how might it affect things?
It's not great timing, and I think in particular the case of David Lammy, we've been reading about how he had become great friends with J.D. Vance, the vice president, and they'd gone fishing together. And such is the nature of diplomacy. Just when you establish that kind of relationship, then it's blown up, and you have to move on. And I'm not sure Yvette Cooper will be quite so interested in playing the sycophantic card, but we'll have to see. But I think there is that playbook for all these diplomats and leaders now with Trump. It's a bit of a sycophancy sandwich. You start your meeting praising him, saying he should win the Nobel Peace Prize. Then somewhere in the middle, you sort of sneak in the bit where you stick up for your country and you play a little bit of hardball. And then at the end again, you flatter him immensely. And we've seen it with Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron and many other leaders now, sort of laying it on thick. I'm sure we'll see it with King Charles himself. I think they're all making this bet that their own populations understand, this guy's got nuclear weapons, he's got the world's biggest economy. We have to pander to his ego, despite the stupid tweets.